If you're over 50 and navigating the current workplace environment, this video is for you. I'm going to share with you the unvarnished truth about the obstacles that you may face, as well as the competitive advantages that you have, and how you can position yourself successfully for the next 15 to 20 years of your work life. So let's actually start right there. The timeline that we're looking at is if you're 50 years old and you want to work for full retirement and get your Social Security benefits at age 67, you're looking at 17 more years to work. If you want to put that in perspective, think about the time you graduated from college, assuming you were 22 years old, and when you turned 39. What did you accomplish between the time you graduated from college and the year before you turned 40? um, there's a lot. There's a lot of career changes that you've probably made, a lot of family changes that you've made, and also probably a lot of places that you've gone and seen and visited. That's the same amount of time that we're looking at right now. And there's no reason to think that these next 17 years shouldn't be as productive and as exciting as those 17 years were. Let's start with the competitive advantages that you have. If you're 50 years old, you've seen a lot of different changes in the workplace. You've seen industry changes and transformation. You've seen economic changes, and you've have this experience of going through these ups and downs. In addition to that, if you have education or advanced degrees, you can combine your practical work experience with your educational work knowledge. You not only know how things work and what you should do, but you know why they work. That's not always clear to younger employees. So that's a very clear advantage that you have that you should certainly stress if you're ever looking for career advancement. The other thing that you have is patience, or at least I would think you do. One of the things that I would say is as you get older, you tend to be more patient with people. You don't have this single-mindedness drive to do things your way. You're more willing to build consensus and see what other people think and believe. You're willing to accept perspectives from others a lot more easily than you were when you were younger. Now, that's not to say that this is 100% true. There are some young people that can really have great people skills and do this well. And there are some people that are older who never get this quite right. But the reality is, I think as you tend to work with people longer, you tend to learn that everything that you see isn't always as clear as you want it to be. And you understand that you may need to take a step back and take other people's perspective into consideration, which is a huge advantage because, like I said, that comes with experience. That's not something that a lot of people just roll out of bed and have. But let's face it, advancement tends to skew young. Once you get to 50 and older, it's harder to get these jobs, with advancement and promotions and, the higher level positions that you may want. And yeah, we're talking about ageism here. It's the reality of the world. And I'm not saying that it's done on purpose. It could be done purposely. It could be a conscious effort, but it could also be just an unconscious bias. People just tend to look at people that are older and make these decisions that they're just not ready for this type of job anymore. And I know that's hard to believe, but it's just the real part of the world. People make these decisions, maybe not maliciously, but it's part of the environment. And if we're 50 and older, we need to realize that.
So, pardon the interruption.
Hi, everybody. This is Greg, the editor. Just stopping the video for a second. Wanted to make sure that if this video is something that you're finding valuable, we would certainly appreciate it if you would give us a like and a share.
Back to the program.
Think about tattoos for a second. Again, talking about being in the work environment for a long period of time. I can remember about 20 years ago when tattoos were viewed as, unprofessional, and there were policies actually written by companies that said people should come to work without having any visible tattoos. So if you worked in a job in the South, you may have to wear long sleeves in the summertime, which didn't really seem to make a whole lot of sense, but that was the world that we lived in. Now tattoos have come around and they're a little bit more mainstream. People don't blink an eye at them the way they used to. And that's good. The unconscious bias has changed. But that's for tattoos. For us, if we're older than 50, they're going to look at age and they're going to look at our health and our wellness. How do we present ourselves? So obesity is another issue. Is it okay? No, it's not necessarily okay, but it's something that we have to recognize and deal with. So the reality is we can't change our age. If we're 50, if we're 60, if we're 70, that's just who we are. And we're not going to be able to change the dates that we graduated from high school or college on our applications. But our personal presentation can certainly change. If we come in and don't look well, then they're going to make some judgment calls. They may look at us and say, are we a healthcare risk? Will we have a lot of unproductive work hours because we're going to call off sick because we just are old and unhealthy? These are the financial liabilities that companies consider. Whether it's right or wrong, it's what it is. So what we can do is take control. Again, we can't take control of our age, but we can take control of how we present ourselves. We can, the stereotypes are that if we're older, we are unwilling to change and we don't know how to keep up with technology and we don't want to keep up with technology. You have to have a knowledge base of what the technologies are that you work with and be able to speak to them in a way that demonstrates understanding and a willingness to accept, how the new technologies can affect our current work environment. And you also have to be able to present yourself professionally. What is the current professional dress code? It may not be what we have experienced 20 years ago. So again, you may have to adjust what your presentation is physically. Now, I understand this may not seem fair, but we're not talking about fairness here. We're talking about strategies that allow you to be competitive in the current environment. So just take this into consideration and make sure that, if you're looking for these other jobs and opportunities, that you make these changes. The other thing is your health. You got your physical appearance. So you want to make sure that you're healthy, that you lose weight. You don't look like you're going to be a person that's going to have any long-term health problems for the company. And cognitively, you want to make sure that you're sharp and mentally present and able to speak freely on a variety of issues. So these are some of the things that you want to think of when you go in for an interview or if you're looking for any type of personal advancement in the workplace. The other thing is, don't accept the fact that you're done at 50. Your prime isn't over after you're 50. Think of a couple of examples. Colonel Sanders started Kentucky Fried Chicken when he was 62. Sam Walton started Walmart when he was 44, but he built it into a global empire into his 50s and 60s. So these are just a couple examples, and there are many, many more. The difference is they just didn't sit back and accept the table scraps at their age and say, okay, we'll just accept whatever you give us. No, they had personal belief in their own self-worth, and they went for it. And they made changes, and they changed the world. And that's what you need to do too. It may not be on that same level, but you have to have a belief in your own personal self-worth and not the limiting self beliefs that other people want to put on you. So that's the other thing that you want to consider when you're at this stage, because other people are going to say that it's not your time anymore, and that's why you're not going to have these opportunities. So you have to believe in yourself. And that may mean looking elsewhere. If your current employer is no longer valuing you to the degree that they should, then it's okay to look somewhere else, because someone else will probably be willing to take that, take your skills and knowledge and use it for their organization. And in some cases, that could be a competitor, which, is a win-win for the person that's hiring you because they get to take away the value that you have from their competitor and apply it to their organization. So don't be afraid to look somewhere else. Often we feel trapped at our current jobs, and I don't think we should. Like I said, 17 years is a long time to feel trapped. The other thing is do something completely different. There's a lot of things that you can do today that you couldn't have done years ago. Consulting is one thing that you can do. That allows you to continue to stay in the same type of work field that you have, but you get to do it individually. You don't have to do it for another employer. You can kind of do that as a self-employed contractor. You can also write books online, create online courses, or start a YouTube channel. There's a lot of people starting channels on YouTube and other social media outlets where they're able to just kind of talk about things that interest them and their passion, and they're able to share their knowledge in ways that they couldn't have done in the past. Again, this is a great opportunity, and it's okay for you to know that just because you're older doesn't mean that all you have to do is consume content. You can actually take advantage of this opportunity and create content. And I would just, like I said, encourage you to do that, and take advantage of those opportunities, and just believe in yourself, whatever it is that you choose to do, and know that you can make it happen.